Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. The National Caucus and Center on Black Aging and the Women's Institute for a Secure Retirement, WISER, welcome you to our webinar today on Social Security, your pension, and retirement savings plans. Our presenter today, Laurel Beaton of WISER, spent her career working on retirement income policy as a researcher, writer, speaker, and educator in academia, government, think tanks, and on Capitol Hill. In retirement, she continues her policy work part-time and is a member of the English Department Alumni Advisory Board at Virginia Tech, where she received her doctorate. Laurel, such a pleasure once again to have you with us. The floor is yours. We are anticipating great information. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back again and talking about this incredibly important topic. And let me say from the beginning, will you hold your questions until the end? I may answer them as we go along. And also bear in mind, I'm not going to give you specific individual information because that has to be your decision, how you take the umbrella information that I give you and you get under that umbrella of information, and then you make the decisions about how you are going to deal with your retirement income. So let's get going. Next slide, please. What is WISER? And WISER is a nonprofit organization that provides women with basic financial information aimed at helping them take financial control of their lives. Next slide, please. And we pair with the National Resource Center on Women in Retirement Planning. We pair with the Administration on Aging to provide a one-stop gateway for basic retirement information. And I encourage all of you to take a look at the WISER website, and you're going to see references on all of the slides, or most of the slides, to WISER websites and other websites to give you more information, because what I'm going to do today is fire hose you with information. Next slide, please. And the last thing I just want to remind you that WISER does is we have a financial caregiving hub. This was new in November, and it's really a wonderful resource. So many of us, I cared for a spouse who had cancer. We had the bed in the living room. I cared for parents who were in Minnesota, and I was here and my brother was there. The Financial Caregiver Hub has tabs that you can go in and click a tab and say, who am I caring for and what are resources that will help me deal with this? So next slide, please. Let's get rolling. Oh, and by the way, if you see me tilt my head up, for those of you who wear bifocals, and I'm pulling back from my screen, you will know the gesture that I can't quite get it in focus, so I'm looking through a different part of my bifocals. So if you see me do that, it's not snobbery and looking down my nose at you. It's me getting my bifocals in focus. So let's hit the ground here. Common financial mistakes. And you know this, but let me just remind you, not planning to live a long life. We live longer than men, not a whole lot longer, but we do live longer than men. And a lot of us live longer than expected. Just because the age says average is 83 or 84 or 85 doesn't mean that you're going to live longer than the average. So take that into consideration. Another thing is not saving. Please, there are all kinds of savings opportunities that I'm going to talk about. Take advantage of them. Another mistake, not thinking about your financial future. Even if you're living paycheck to paycheck now, I want you to stop and think about it and start thinking about the future. And I'm going to give you some ways to do that. Not making a plan and then taking action about what you have planned to do was another mistake we all make. And not getting involved in your finances and discussing them with, if you're married or if you have a partner or your children, maybe your adult children, you may want to talk with them about financial planning. And then here's a biggie that a lot of us who are older get into trouble with: spending too much money on our kids and our grandkids and not thinking about our plan for the future. Not that you can't do nice things for your kids or your grandkids, but it's important to think about yourself first. You know, they say on the plane, put your oxygen mask on first and then take care of your child. Do that with your finances as well. Okay, next slide, please. Let's look at it in another way. Here are some questions that you should know the answers to. Have you earned retirement benefits at any of your jobs? How much will those benefits be? What happens to your benefits if you change jobs? What happens to your benefits if you retire early? And I'm going to talk about retiring early too. Do you have retirement plan information from your job? How much will your Social Security benefits be? What does Social Security provide? How can you save for retirement if your job doesn't have a retirement plan? And how will taxes affect your retirement income? So let's go. Next slide, please. Sources of retirement income, and sources include, you know, Social Security, and there are employer-sponsored plans, and then there are individual plans I'm responsible for, other personal savings and investments, and savings and investments of a spouse or partner that we may be able to take part in. Next slide, please. Social Security benefits. Now, this is so important because Social Security is your retirement income base. Social Security will always be there. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but let's look at the meat and potatoes. Workers and their employers each pay 6.2% of the workers' earnings up to the cap into what, you know, when they used to see when we got checks, literal checks or literal pay stubs, your FICA tax. Now you see it on your internet, on your pay stub on your screen. FICA, it's the federal insurance contributions limit, up to $160,200 in 2023. Now, the minimum number of credits needed to qualify for Social Security is 40 credits. Now you can earn up to 4 credits per year. You don't have to earn 4 credits per year. You can earn just 1 credit per year, but you need to get 40 credits. So that's about 10 years worth of contributing to Social Security. And the numbers are there in 2023. A credit equals $1,640. So all you need to earn to get a credit to start qualifying for Social Security is that $1,640. Social Security benefits are calculated based on a wage indexed average of your highest 35 years of earnings. Now, this is important because if, as women often are, you are out of the labor force taking care of your mother, your husband's mother, your children, you may not have contributed for 35 years. What that means is, in a calculation of 35 years, the years you didn't contribute, there will be zeros, and that pulls your average down. So you want to think about ways that you can build up using those quarters of credit so that you don't have zeros, but that you have 35 years of contributions. And then the last point about Social Security, about 40% of people who receive Social Security benefits in retirement or from disability, or people who receive benefits because of a deceased worker, have to pay income tax on their benefits. Now, what that means is that if you earn above a certain amount, and that's between $25,000 and $35,000, you may have to include 50% of the value of your Social Security in your taxable earnings. And if you earn more than that as a spouse, pair of spouses in your filing together, then you may have to include up to 85%. So those are things to keep in mind, right, as you're looking at whether you file jointly, whether you file separately, but this is after you are retired. While you're working, you contribute so that you can receive your Social Security benefit should you die, should you retire, or should you need disability benefits. Next slide, please. And this is the one that I emphasize the most. Please go to the Social Security, and you can see it there on the screen. Go to the Social Security website and get a My Social Security account for yourself. What it will give you every year is an estimate of your Social Security benefit, and that will enlighten you. So many people are surprised at the level of their Social Security benefit. You can also check and see if your employer has recorded your benefit, and if you have any questions, you can generally get them answered there. So please do that. That's so important. Next slide, please. And this is the financial outlook for Social Security. I'll look at this quickly, and if we have time at the end, then, and you want to know, I can talk about it more. In 2023, if there are no changes made by 2034, the Social Security trust funds, and I'm going to talk about that for a minute, will be drawn down, and Social Security will only be able to pay beneficiaries between 75 and 80% of the benefit they have earned. Now, why is that? That's because when we as workers work and earn and contribute to the system, that goes out to pay benefits. And if there is extra, that money goes into the Social Security trust funds. They buy federal bonds with it, which is obviously the safest investment, which is what you want for Social Security. And those bonds pay the trust funds interest. And if we come to a time like now where we're drawing down more, in other words, the population that's receiving benefits is larger than what the workers can pay in, we start drawing down on those trust funds. And that's what will be empty, the trust funds, in 2034. But that doesn't mean you won't get a Social Security benefit. Every worker would have to die of COVID for you to get zero. What that means is we need to do some thinking about how we can build up the Social Security trust funds and the money coming into Social Security. And I can do a whole separate seminar on that. It is definitely possible. And there are lots of us talking about it. But remember, Social Security is your base. You depend on it. You want to advocate for it. Think about it as that stable base. And we can talk further if you want. Next slide, please. So let's go on to your employer-sponsored plans and how you put money in your savings piggy bank. Next slide, please. The most common types of employer-sponsored retirement plans are defined contribution plans. And then the other kind, most common, is defined benefit plans. So let's look at defined contribution plans first. They offer eligible employees the opportunity to save for retirement by having a portion of their paycheck deposited into a retirement plan account. Employers may or may not match a portion of the employee contribution. The value of the account will fluctuate due to changes in the value of the investments. And here's the important thing about defined contribution plans. The employee, you take the risk in a defined contribution plan. Now, examples of those would be your 401k or 403b, and I'm going to talk about these separately, plans, and your IRAs, your individual retirement accounts that are offered by your employer. Defined benefit plans are funded by the employer, and they specify based on a formula how much retirement income employees will get once they retire. And the risk is taken mainly by the employer, because the employer is taking that money that they proportion out for you and investing it. So that's something to think about. The employer takes the risk in a DB plan. You take the risk in a DC plan. So next slide, please. Let's look at some of those DC plans. 401k or 403b retirement savings plans. And the only difference between the two of them is one is for a for-profit and one is a not-for-profit kind of organization. And some organizations are both for-profit and not-for-profit. So if you say, wait a minute, I think I work for a not-for-profit and I'm getting a different kind of retirement plan. Yeah, that's just how your employer has organized. Basically, they're the same thing. If you participate, contributions are automatically taken out of your pay and invested in funds that you choose from a list of available options. In other words, your employer contracts with the 401k provider, and that could be TD Ameritrade, it could be Vanguard. A lot of the big organizations provide 401k or 403b plans, and they provide options for you ways for you to invest your money. If you're feeling a little bit scared about that, there are defaults. And there are other ways we can talk about investing at another time, or someone else can talk to you about investing, but that's the way they work. And the beauty of 401ks or 403bs is that they provide you with a tax break on the money that you contribute. Now, the annual contribution limits for 2023 are very high. 22,500 or 30,000 if you're 50 and older. And it sounds like a lot. And if you're a very high income earner, it's not, and you want to get rid of that money so that it isn't going to be taxed right now. You can automatically, your employer, this is an employer fact, your employer can automatically enroll you, or more common, you must decide to enroll. Now, if you're with an employer and you do not know, it's very important. I can't encourage you more than I do it. If it is a choice for you to enroll in this kind of a plan, please do that. Now, some employers, and interesting research on this, is we know that if the employer has a plan where you are automatically enrolled, when you come in, you're part of the plan right away. Now, you're perfectly free to say, don't want to do this, take me out of the plan. Most people don't do that. Whereas on the other side, an awful lot of people say, oh, next month I'm going to enroll. And then they forget about it. And they say, oh my goodness, 6 months went by and I haven't enrolled yet. And I'll just wait till next month. So we know that the automatic enrollment is a good thing, but please check with your employer to be sure. Now, typically, employers request that you have a certain number of years to be vested in the plan. Now, what that means is that you have a right to the value of that benefit if you leave your job, or obviously if you retire from your job. Now, keep that, you always have a right to the money you have contributed, but this is the money that has been earned as it's in that investment and that your employer contributed. Keep that vesting piece in mind because we're going to talk about it more, and it's really, really important. Okay, also, an employer may, and I know the federal government does this with the FERS employees, the Federal Employee Benefit Plan, that the government, if you do not contribute to the thrift savings plan, they contribute. And I think it's 1%. I can't remember anymore. I assume I'm not talking to federal employees here, and you have your own people to tell you about it. But sometimes an employer will make a contribution on your behalf, even if you don't contribute. That's a really good thing. You can voluntarily contribute to an investment account through your paycheck deduction up to, when those are the numbers. You have the choice. Now, here is the interesting thing of before tax contributions or after tax contributions. Here's the thing. If you say, I'm going to put $1,000 in my account, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in now and in a regular account, and I will pay interest on it. I will pay taxes on it, on the amount of money and the interest that is accrued when I take it out when I retire after age 59 and a half, right? So I'm not going to pay taxes on it now. What it's going to do is reduce, say my income is $60,000 a year, and I'm going to put $1,000 into my 401k. That reduces my income to $59,000. Okay, so that means that also reduces the amount of Social Security that I pay in. But remember, an awful lot of people get surprised when they retire and they start drawing out of their IRA and they say, oh, I have to pay tax on that money. It's just deferred. Now, there's another kind that says I can do a Roth. Roth is the senator who invented this or presented it. What you can do is say, all right, I'm going to put $1,000 into my account, but I'm going to pay taxes on it now. So I earned $60,000. I'm going to pay taxes on my $60,000, and I'm going to take $1,000 and put it into my savings retirement account. But when I take it out, I don't have to pay taxes on it. I've already paid taxes on it. And not only that, all of the lovely interest that is accrued, I don't have to pay taxes on that either. So there are balancing acts on this. How do you feel? When should you pay taxes, now or later? And it's important for you to think about that. I can't tell you what to do. It's important for you to think about how you want to pay your taxes, how you want to invest your contributions, and how you want to pay taxes on the earnings. Next slide, please. So we've got 401ks and 403bs. Now we have simples. And I'm going to talk about several kinds of IRAs, but the two I'm going to talk about now are employer provided. The beauty of the savings incentive match plan for employees, the simple IRA, is that it allows small employers. These are employers with fewer than 100 employees, small businesses, the self-employed and their employees to contribute tax-deferred contributions. Now, a simple IRA says you don't have the choice of paying tax on it now. The money is tax deferred. You have to pay tax on it when you take it out. Employees are immediately 100% vested, and employees may contribute each year or not, but your employer is going to contribute some. Taxes are deferred until withdrawal. And now here's an important thing about these things. While you are saving money in an IRA, you may have, and I know I saw this happen, Galveston, Texas sits right on the Gulf Coast, and they have a plan for their employees, Galveston, Braderia, and I can't remember the third county. They sit right on the coast, and they had a terrible, terrible flood. And they had a savings plan for their employees. And what happened was an awful lot of people were wiped out, and they said, oh, I need that money now. And they took the money out of their plans. Now, if you have a flood in your basement and it's making your house unstable and you need that money, be aware that if you take your money out before you're 59 and a half, it can result in a 10% penalty and income taxes on the withdrawal of that amount. Now, that's not to say you can't take the money out or you don't really need it, but it's something to think about, and also think about, can you afford to have an emergency savings account as well? These are important things to think about. And again, I can't tell you, I don't know what you have and what your obligations are, but it's worth thinking about. Let's go to the SEP IRA. Next slide, please. SEP IRAs, Simplified Employee Pension Plan. A SEP is there for employers of all sizes. They can set up and contribute to traditional IRAs for all their employees. Employers can make contributions to the lesser of, and their rules, 25% of the employee's compensation or $66,000. This is 2023. Employees own and control their own accounts. Again, you can contribute where you want to contribute. Now you can do one of two things. One is that traditional, which means you make withdrawals. You can contribute and you pay taxes at withdrawal, or you can pay taxes now and contribute with your money tax-free when you take it out. Now, for the traditional IRA, withdrawals before 59 and a half will be included in your taxable income. And again, you may have a 10% penalty. For the Roth IRA, remember, you've already paid taxes on it. So any earnings withdrawn before age 59 and a half, you will be penalized at 10% for taking the amount out of retirement account, but they won't be taxed because you've already paid taxes on it. Are your heads spinning right now with all of these things? Let's go to the next slide. Decisions to make and avoid. And I think these are important to think about. And if you don't do anything else, and I'm going to keep repeating this, plan and participate. Defined contribution plans do not promise you a specific payment amount. A lot of people saw their 401k plans bump when the stock market bumped recently. You may see that. If safer investments, you may be advised by your financial planner or by your own research to look at government bonds. Important again to think about that. You or your employer both contribute to your individual account under a plan, sometimes at a set rate, but that's the contributions. That's why it's called defined contribution. You as an employee carry the risk. At retirement, you receive the balance of your account, and that depends on your contributions, plus or minus the investment gains or losses. Contribute as much as you can. I can't emphasize this enough. If your employer, and a lot of employers do, if your employer provides a match, that's free money. So if your employer provides a match up to, say, 3% of your contribution, boy, oh boy, put that 3% in, because that's a free 3% into your account. So take advantage of those matches and participate. And even if your employer automatically enrolls you, the contribution rate may be low, but find out what it is and contribute more if you can. And if you'll notice at the bottom of the slide there, I have a monthly budget worksheet that is available on the Wiser website. And this will take you through where you say, I want to save, but I have to pay too much, and my rent is this, and food costs this, and my kid is playing soccer, and I've got to get knee pads and all of those things that the kids wear now. And, isn't it amazing that we all didn't die? I remember riding a bicycle in shorts and no helmet and elbows. And of course, maybe that's why I wave my arms around a lot. I'm sure I fell over the handlebars once or twice, but that will help you look at your budget and think about savings. Okay, next slide. One more slide on decisions and mistakes. Defined contribution plans continued. You're eligible for catch-up contributions. That means that if you are 50 or older, because you may or may not have had the opportunity to contribute when you were younger, they're giving you an opportunity as you get near retirement to contribute more to the plan. So if you can do it, starting the year you turn age 50, make them. Resist, if you can, the urge to take withdrawals or loans from your plan account. And again, it's a hard decision, and sometimes you may have to do that. But please think carefully, because there are tax consequences, there are penalties. And remember, when you're 75 or 85, it's going to be pretty hard for you to get a job to fill in what you need. So please resist if you can. You can expect your retirement plans to include a selection of investment options that you can invest in with your account balance, and you don't need to pick invest. Let me try again here and get my teeth back in place. Don't let the need to pick investments keep you from making the most important decision, which is participating. You can go to the default, or generally there are people that can help you, or go to the Wiser website and there are fact sheets on financial advisors or thinking about investing. Next slide, please. Let's talk about defined benefit plans for a minute. Now, quickly, because I suspect that many of you don't have, about 43% of the people in the country now have some kind of pension or savings plans, but defined benefit plans are pretty much now in the government sector. If you have a defined benefit plan, you are very lucky because again, the employer funds the plan and the employer bears the risk of the investments. The employer contributes and the investments are designed to ensure there is enough money in the plan to pay the benefits that they promised they would pay you. Also, the employers in defined benefit plans pay into the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, PBGC, to partially guarantee benefits if something happens to the employer and the plan goes down. Now, PBGC replaces some, not necessarily all. But that happened when one of the big defined benefit plans, Studebaker, went down because Studebaker went away. The pension plan went away and left a lot of old people without their pensions, and the Congress did get busy and create PBGC. Generally defined benefit plans require a number of years or a specific age or a milestone event. That is, if you know, in the military, what is it, 20 years and age 50, I think is the combination, but there are different combinations. You are automatically enrolled if you are in the group of employees eligible to participate and you meet the age and service requirements. Now, here's something that everyone should do. Check your SPD, your summary plan description, to see the eligibility requirements. That is very, very important. Next slide, please. Don't leave until you're vested. Now, this is where the SPD comes in. It may be, and we saw this, nurses, like teachers, and having been a teacher and having a best friend who was a nurse, I say underpaid for the hours we're on our feet and doing good work. Nurses would move from hospital to hospital to get $1 or $2 more an hour. But what happened was a lot of them were not looking at the benefit plan of the hospital that they left, and they would leave if the vesting period was 5 years and they left at 4.5. They left if they'd waited 6 more months. They left that contribution of the employer on the table. Please look before you leave for an increased dollar amount because you may be leaving benefits. And at retirement, I know most of you aren't there yet, but quickly think about, a lot of times collecting a pension doesn't start until 65. And if it does, it's generally reduced if you start getting it early, just like Social Security is. Think about the form of benefit you would take, payable during your life or reduced to continue for your spouse. A lot of times people don't think about, I hear, and this is a man thing, but it may be a woman thing now too, which is, I'm going to continue to take care of my wife no matter what. And of course, I'm not going to die. And then he does, and he didn't sign up for a joint and survivor and leaves his wife without that pension benefit. If you agree together about what you are going to take now and provide for the spouse later, this is something to think about. And you have to, either spouse, as one decides for a defined benefit plan, you'll see down at the bottom of the slide there, you have to agree to that by signing, say, I understand that we are not going to have the joint and survivor for this. So think about these things. Next slide, please. Both DC and DB plans take advantage of any retirement calculators. And I'm going to give you a whole page of benefit calculators where you put in what is my wage? What other income do I have? What kinds of things do I need to know? And they will help you think through and give you numbers. And by the way, it also says it at the bottom of that slide. We're not endorsing or selling any of these. It's just options for you to look at and use. And we've picked these particular ones because they're pretty easy to use. Make your beneficiary elections carefully. If you die and leave your money in your 401k or your IRA, it will generally go to your spouse automatically unless you have made a designation. And if you want, as I often note, your pristine Corvette from 1969 to go to your nephew, who is the only one who will appreciate it and understand how to take care of it, or if you want to leave him the value so he can buy the Corvette from your estate, then make that designation. Do think about those things carefully. I'm only being silly about your nephew, but understand, where is your money going? Keep your beneficiary elections up to date. Has someone died that you left money to? Do you want to choose someone else? Know your plan's vesting schedule. And I just talked about that, how important that is. Don't leave money on the table. After you leave your job, keep your address current with your former employer. Don't be a missing participant. There's a whole big project out there. Researchers are looking at how many people leave pension money on the table because their old employer can't find them. So keep that stuff up to date unless you take it with you. Next slide, please. And here is that blast list of retirement income and investment calculators. And I suggest you take a look. Social Security Administration has a number of good planning calculators as well. Next slide, please. And here's something you can print off or copy. And again, this is an umbrella to help you look at how you are with your Social Security, your employer pensions. Have you earned a part-time work? What do you have? So that you know, this is truly a get your ducks in a row. So let's look at other savings opportunities. Next slide. And then the next slide. Traditional IRA. Now I've talked about IRAs, but this is you, not your employer, just you. We know what it is. It's a tax deferred savings account. You pay money on your account when you withdraw it. That's the traditional one. You know what the contribution limits are. Married couples can double the amount. And if you withdraw money at age 50, before 59 and a half, you'll have to pay a penalty, and it will be in addition to your regular income tax. And at age 72, you have to start making withdrawals. Now you can open, you say, well, now what do? I want to open an IRA, but I don't know where to go. Financial institutions, your bank, your credit union, the mutual fund companies, brokerage firms, everybody has got an IRA. Next slide, please. And this is your Roth IRA, which we've already talked about, which is you pay taxes now and you can withdraw that money tax-free when you retire. And you can open a Roth IRA even if you participate in an employer-sponsored retirement plan. And again, same financial institutions provide Roth IRAs that provide regular IRAs. Next slide, please. Another savings opportunity, health savings accounts. Now, what these do, if you participate in a high deductible health insurance plan, and I know a lot of young people participate in these high deductibles because they're significantly less expensive. What they do is they allow you to set aside money should something happen to you, have a skiing accident and break your leg, crossing the street in Washington, D.C. and get hit by a metro bus, right? That provides savings. Your contributions are before tax for federal and most state taxes. Your employer contributes to if your employer can contribute to your HSA, and they are excluded from taxable income. Contributions remain in your HSA until you use them. This is a good thing. Distributions are tax-free for federal and most states if you use them to pay for or reimburse yourself for eligible medical expenses. And there, if you look up HSAs, you can see what the eligible expenses are. Now, don't confuse an HSA with an FSA. The flexible spending accounts is a use it or lose it each year. Now, I have more information on these. They're down at the bottom of the screen. They're hot links. Next slide, please. I'm talking as fast as I can. Other savings opportunities. Got kids? The Workplace 529 college savings plans, they are wonderful things. They allow you to contribute for college for your children or your grandchildren in a tax favored account. You can start one on your own, or if your workplace offers one. Again, contributions are after tax. And while contributing to an employer's plan can have a lot of advantages, look closely at the plan your employer is providing to see if it's the right fit for you. There are all kinds of plans out there, depending on the state you live in. There's a Virginia plan, there's a Maryland plan. I don't know about DC, I assume there is one. So that's worth looking at. And then the payroll deduction IRA, you can do outside the IRA. We've already talked about the two kinds of IRAs that are individual IRAs. Next slide, and this is one of the most important things, and it's something that women don't think about, and we should. Changing jobs and leaving work. Next slide, please. Work as long as you can. The longer you can wait to retire, the more likely your benefits will increase. Okay, that just goes without saying. If you contribute to Social Security for more than 35 years, your higher earning years will replace your lower earning years. If you continue working beyond full retirement age for Social Security, and you'll find that on your My Social Security account too, what is your full retirement age? Between your full retirement age and age 70, your Social Security benefit will increase by 8% a year. So, and after 70, it stops, but that's a pretty good deal. Now, nobody's saying work until you die or work until you drop, but it's definitely something to think about. If you're changing jobs or you're leaving your job, know if the plan that you're participating is has last day or hours of service, so that you get credit into your 401k for the year. A specified number of hours is often 1,000 hours of service within a 12-month period, equals a 1 year worth of service. But no, again, the summary plan description, or talk to your HR office, or get a copy of all of the documentation of your plan. When you are being recruited away from your current job, or you're looking at another job, ask the prospective employer about their benefits and let that factor into your decision, in addition to pay comparison plans. What about health benefits? What about health insurance? Do I have a choice? Is there no health insurance? Do you, if there is, do you contribute to a health savings account for me? Consider all the trade-offs and options. If there is a health insurance plan, will it cover your spouse as well? And is that a good deal? Or do you already participate in someone else's plan, your spouse's plan, for example, so you don't need to worry about that? Think about that. Determine what to do with your 401k or your 403b if you leave. Do you want to leave it? Can you leave it in your former employer's plan and let it gain interest there, or roll it over into an IRA? If you take that money out and you don't roll it over, then you're going to have to pay taxes on it and or a penalty or both, depending on what you've got. So it's important to think about those things. I know an awful lot of women will say, and it's mostly women, but I give men credit too, about 60% of the caregivers that we know are women. So that means the 40% of caregivers are men. That's pretty impressive. I think it's a much more significant number than it used to be. Please don't quit your job to take care of your mother unless you know what you're going to do financially. Do you have health insurance that will cover you? COBRA, that is the carryover from your former employer. It covers you. You are allowed to buy back in at full price to your former employer's plan, but that's not going to cover you forever. What are you going to do for health insurance? If you leave your current job, what are you going to do because you are now not contributing to Social Security or a pension plan? What are you going to do when you're 75? I think these things are all very important to think about. Not that you shouldn't take care of your mother, but think about negotiating with an employer maybe. Next slide, please. If you're leaving the workplace altogether, understand the impact on your Social Security benefits. And remember, we talked about that 10 years, that 40 quarters, the needing 35 years to get the annual, let me try again, the 35 years, so you don't have zeros counted into the average. Your benefit is also based on your earnings. So if you have 35 years and more, the higher earning years will replace lower earning years and up your benefit. Can you extend your years so that you get credit until you're 70? And if you decide to take your benefits before full retirement age, understand that they will be reduced. Now, some people have to. Maybe disability, it may be, again, you need to take care of your mother, but think carefully about it. And there's a website there on full retirement age and the approximate amount of benefits you'll get. So next slide, please. Unique challenges for women. You know this, we live longer, we earn less, we take time away from work or do part-time work, which means we have less in savings and pensions, and we live alone at retirement. So next slide, please. Happiness is a long-term plan. Please plan and participate. And I've gone 5 minutes over my limit. My apologies. Questions. Do we have questions in general that I can kind of give some umbrella answers to? Remember, I can't do specifics because I don't know your specifics, but I've given you a lot of stuff.
Laurel, thank you. You have given us a lot of stuff to plan. And so we thank you. We are at 1:56, and I'd like to ask you, Laurel, if you would indulge us maybe 2:10, 2:15, and ask our audience not to jump off because we do have some really great questions in the chat. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to kick us off by asking this question. To open a Roth, traditional or otherwise, can we walk into our institution or credit union? Must we have a lump sum of money, or can we walk in with a smaller pot of money and say, I'd like to open up a Roth IRA, traditional or otherwise, and make monthly contributions. Is that possible?
I'm sure it is possible. Now, I cannot speak for the individual institutions. I suspect that, well, I do not know. I would guess that your credit union or your bank will want you and will sit down. You'll sit down with one of the bank managers or the credit union managers and say, this is how much I want to contribute and this is how I want to start. The investment firms, I don't know about whether there is a specific amount. Again, that's talk to your credit union, talk to your bank, ask them.
Okay. All right. Next question is inflation. We are living in inflationary times.
Yeah.
How do we realistically live? How often do we look at this budget and how do we meet those expenses that we need, our food, our shelter? How do we do that?
I wish I had a cool answer for you. and if you find one, please email me. And I don't mean to be silly about that. Inflation is clobbering, particularly people with lower income. I think the thing is to keep at it. When I bought my first house, oh, I'm going to tell you how old I am. In 1977, get ready, hold on to your chairs. The mortgage rate, and I thought I got a good deal, was 8.something%. And people are reeling around backwards at 5% now, you know, and we got used to very low inflation. My advice is, if you can, put away as much as you can, even if you're cutting off one of your streaming services. How many streaming services can you watch at one time? And I know your children are going to scream and yell about that. How fancy a phone do you need? And I'll bet your kids are going to scream and yell about that. But think about ways that you can just keep stepping forward. And if you have the privilege of having an automatic deduction from your paycheck, I found when I started out, I didn't even miss it after the first couple of months. And I was talking with somebody about going to college and the teaching assistants pay that we got. And again, I'm going to reveal how old I am here. This would have been 1971 through 1974. I was teaching a full load of freshman comp at Virginia Tech, and they were paying me $4,000, and it went up to $4,500. Such a deal they got, but I got through school, and I don't know that I could have even thought about saving anything at that point. I wish I had, but once I got out, I started just put a little bit in as you can. Please don't let it drop. The other thing is when your son or daughter graduates from high school, start them on an IRA. When they, you know, for their jobs, start them on individual IRAs. When they're working at Burger King or McDonald's or whatever it is, that they can start putting a little bit of money away. I know it's really awful right now. It will get better. Social Security is your base. Let's all work on saying Social Security is important so that everybody will get together, including members of Congress, who in the end will deal with this and the president will sign it. There are all kinds of solutions to making Social Security solvent so that it will be there for you. That's your base. I'm sorry I don't have, I wish I had the magic wand. I don't, but please don't give up. please.
Next question is a segue on not giving up, but I want to share the question. It asks, what suggestions do you have for employees currently retired, but still working?
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's you're looking at one. I retired from GAO in 2018. Be aware of your Social Security benefit. There are penalties for working and earning over a certain amount and receiving Social Security benefits if you are within the age range of 62 to your full retirement age. And if you go to ssa.gov and say working and receiving benefits, they will give you all of the specifics. So I suggest you look at that if you are thinking about, well, gee, I'd really like to get my Social Security benefits now. The thinking behind that is, and after age 70, you can work and earn whatever you want and receive your Social Security benefit. The thinking was Social Security was planned as a benefit for people who are retired or so disabled they can't work, or for families of people who have died. And then they said, well, really, we would like people to stay in the labor force longer. And so there have been adjustments made. So be sure you understand what you give and what you take if you work and earn and get Social Security too. Or if you're thinking about getting Social Security too. If you're retired, again, use that budget sheet. There's a link to there, and look at what you have now and project out to living to be 85, 89. Now, my mother lived to be 101, and my dad lived to be 94. And I joke that's because we all grew up in Minnesota and we're frozen half the year, so we're only half as old. But that means that I have the longevity genes. And so I'm looking at least living to 100, and I need to think about that. So I have to plan, and every month I try not to spend everything, put some aside, because at some point I may need someone to come in and help me. We also have, if you look at the rules for Medicare and Medicaid on the caregiving, go to Wiser, go to the caregiving website, and you can look at what Medicare and what Medicaid provide. Medicare comes with Social Security, the hospital benefit, but the doctors and medication benefits, those are a separate deal. Those are Part B. So you want to get boned up on what is provided there. And I assume that if you're older than 65, you know that. If you're retired and younger than 65, don't forget that you must apply for Medicare at age 65. They aren't going to say, oh, we forgot Jane Smith and get her to apply. You're going to have to remember to do that. So think carefully about that and look carefully at all of the different kinds of plans there are for Medicare, Medicare Basics and Medicare Part B. Medicaid is a plan for very low income individuals. You have to show that you have very little income and very little in assets, and that's hard to do. I hear people say, well, I'm just going to spend all my money and Medicaid will take care of me. Be careful about that. Think that through and look at the rules. And you may want to go to the CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, look at their websites about Medicare and Medicaid. And there are a lot of, I assume that AARP has some information on that. Less wiser because we're more retirement income than we are healthcare, but there are all kinds of healthcare sites. And look at the caregiving site that we have and think about that as well. I'm trying to think of what else I can tell you as a retired person. As a retired person, know what you have, know what you might have. If you have a spouse, plan things so that if one of you dies, what is going to happen to the money? Where does that go? Who are the beneficiaries? Again, plan, plan, plan. It's just so important. Again, no cool answer. The answer is to think hard. And again, put that oxygen mask on yourself. Think about, how am I going to breathe? How am I going to survive? And then I can help my oldest friend or my spouse or my mother. Think about it that way too.
Perfect segue. Perfect segue. And we are approaching 2:10, and I want to be respectful of your time, Laurel. I also want to say before we leave this afternoon that the Women's Institute for Secure Retirement isn't just for women.
Yes.
We've had several of our men guests this afternoon send direct messages and ask if Wiser is just for women.
No, no. Please take a look at what it happened this way because we saw so many women did not, Cindy, the founder, saw that so many women didn't know this information. And that's why it's Wiser Women. But please, our information is there for men as well. And we would be thrilled. Please go in and look at it. Most of the information comes across both men, women, and married, not married, partnered, not partnered. Take a look. There are a lot of questions, and it's an easy website to use. Click on the little magnifying glass and ask a question or put in a topic, and things will magically appear.
Perfect segue. Laurel, as always, thank you. Thank you for teaching us this afternoon about the importance of planning, planning, planning. That is a terrific t-shirt that I don't need to afford. But I thank you, and I thank our audience for joining us, and we hope you will join us very soon.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was great fun, and click on all of those places and plan. Do your children a favor and plan and make them plan too.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Good to see you, folks.
Good to see you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.